Welcome to the Widowed Mom Podcast, episode 277, First Thoughts in Grief.
Welcome to the Widowed Mom Podcast, the only podcast that offers a proven process to help you work through your grief, to grow, evolve, and create a future you can truly look forward to. Here's your host, Master Certified Life Coach, Grief Expert, Widow, and Mom, Krista St-Germain.
Hey there, welcome to another episode of the podcast. It is fall in my house. Actually, it's been fall since Labor Day weekend. This isn't coming out until the 16th, I think. But it is officially fall. I love fall. I went shopping. I bought more stuff that I don't need, but I wanted it. And that's not the topic of this episode of the podcast, but I do want to take the opportunity to remind you that you are worth simple pleasures. Simple pleasures might not be fall decorations for you. That's not the point. What are simple pleasures for you? Are you allowing yourself to have them? Not because you need them, but just because they feel good to you. What are those things that you could let yourself do or have that would move the pleasure needle for you? I just want to encourage you to lean into those things as we go into the fall. And I also want to remind you that today is the last day to register for Grief Essentials. Grief Essentials is the program that I created that is so good for those in early grief, so good for those who are feeling like grief is overwhelming and hard, and they want it to be easier. Not that I can ever make grief easy, but I have learned that with the right tools and with the right community, early grief can definitely get easier. And that's what Grief Essentials is about. And we start on the 17th, tomorrow, if you are listening to this podcast on the day it is released. So you can go to coachingwithkrista.com/Grief Essentials and sign up there, snag your spot, join us for 8 weeks. I will be teaching the things that I think move the needle the most, make grief easier, and connect you with other widows who get what it's like. So I would love to have you join us. Okay, let's talk about first thoughts in grief, shall we? Actually got this idea from a teacher that I saw on TikTok. I wish that all children had this teacher. I should have looked up her name. But she was just teaching this lesson plan in class, and I loved the way she explained it. And so I want to take her words, and I'm sorry, I'm not crediting them, but I want to take her approach and apply it towards what we can use in grief, how we can think about our thoughts differently. So what she was telling her class was essentially the first thought that might show up in your brain might not be a very nice thought. You might have some thoughts about other people in the class or yourself, and those thoughts might not be very kind or very helpful. And isn't that the same thing that happens to us in grief? Where the first thoughts that show up, those automatic, habitual, shaped by our fears, shaped by our grief, shaped by our cultural programming, right? Those thoughts, those first thoughts that show up might not be so kind. They might not be so useful. In acceptance and commitment training, which I am a big fan of, we use the phrase toward or away. Some thoughts are toward thoughts, meaning that they move us toward what we want. Some thoughts are away thoughts, meaning that they move us away from what we want. And it's not as simple as to say that this list of thoughts is an away list and this list of thoughts is a toward list, because we all value different things, right? We're all trying to create something different with our lives, which means what might be a toward thought for you might be an away thought for me. So it's not as simple as here's a list of thoughts that you should think. And here's a list of thoughts that you don't want to listen to when they pop up in your brain, right? It really is more about noticing what are the thoughts that just pop up in my brain. What are the thoughts that my brain offers me? Like clouds in the sky. When I look up and I notice what's there, what do I see? And are those thoughts moving me toward what I want or away from what I want? And if the answer is away, then what could I choose as a second thought? Or maybe even a third thought? So let me give you some examples and then you can practice. So maybe the first thought that pops up for you as you think about today, right? Or you think about life without your person is, I'll never be happy again. That might be the first thought. That was definitely one of my first thoughts. It was, I'll probably never be truly happy again. Notice, is that thought moving me toward what I want or away from what I want? I'm not wrong for thinking it because thoughts aren't right or wrong. They just are. But I'll never be happy again, for me, was a thought that was moving me away from the life that I wanted. So what could I choose as a second thought? Maybe my second thought is, it's totally okay for me to think this thought right now. Many widows have this thought. That might be my second thought. Then maybe I would choose a third thought, like, other widows have been happy again, maybe I could too. Or, I can find moments of peace and eventually joy, even if it takes longer than I'd like. Or, maybe I'll get there someday. Or, I'm on my way to figuring this out, right? We notice that the first thought that shows up isn't moving us toward what we want, and then we choose a second thought, and then maybe even a third thought. Maybe the first thought that shows up for you is, no one understands what I'm going through. I notice when I think that thought, I feel lonely, I feel disconnected, I want to isolate, and then I actually make it less likely that people who care about me could understand what I'm going through, because when I isolate, I don't show them. So not a very useful first thought for me. Moves me away from what I want, not a toward thought. So what could a second thought be? A second thought could be, it's true that this is unique to me, but I'm also not alone in my pain. Other humans know pain too. Other humans have grief too. My grief is unique, but other humans also know grief. That could be my second thought. Maybe then my third thought could be, there are people who want to understand what I'm going through. Not that we have to have three thoughts, by the way. I'm just saying sometimes the first thought is really, really unuseful and definitely an away thought. And sometimes the second thought might move us a little closer to what we want. And sometimes it's worth going a little more, a little beyond that second thought to look for a third thought of what could be even more useful to me, what could move me even closer to creating the experience that I want to create next, in a way that doesn't feel fake, in a way that doesn't feel phony, but in a way that's actually believable to me. So one more example could be, I can't do this by myself. I can't do this alone. And then maybe the second thought, if we decide that that one is an away thought, could be, I don't have to do everything alone. Maybe I could ask for help. Notice I didn't go straight to, I can do everything alone. Why do we do that to ourselves? Well, I know why we do it to ourselves. We're taught to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, and rugged individuality is superior and all the things, but we don't have to do that to ourselves. We don't have to do it alone. And maybe the third thought is, I'm building a support system that helps me regularly, right? It doesn't matter what it is. What matters is that you start noticing your first thoughts in grief. If they are not helping you, if they are not providing the return that you would like, then you don't have to keep giving them your energy or time. Thoughts are things. You are not your thoughts. You are the thinker. You are the one who experiences the thoughts. You are the one who gets to notice her first thoughts, determine whether they are toward or away thoughts, and then make choices accordingly. You get to be the one who chooses her second thoughts and her third thoughts, even in grief. So I want you to challenge yourself to do that today. Maybe you go back and you ask yourself, what first thoughts have already showed up in my brain today that have not really been very useful to me? And if those thoughts were to show up again, what might I want to choose as my second thought or my third thought? Go back. Look at what's already happened in your brain. What has your brain already offered you that maybe you didn't even question because it just felt so true when it showed up? And you were just kind of hooked by it, and you didn't even give yourself the opportunity to choose a second thought because in the moment, the first thought just felt so true, so not optional. That's what happens with our awareness very often, is that we don't have it until after it's over. We don't have it until we go back and we look, what happened there? And we get curious. And then because we take the time to get curious and we take the time to think about our thinking, then we can spot the patterns. And then that way, the next time that same thought shows up, there's a higher probability that we will recognize it as just a thought. And then we can pivot faster to that second thought or that third thought because we were already on to the pattern that existed in our brain. We already kind of knew what our brain might throw at us. And then when it happened, we went, aha, I saw it. There it is again. First thought. I don't have to believe that one. Then we get better at it and better at it and better at it. It's one of the many things I love doing in Mom Goes On, by the way. It's helping people choose new ways of thinking about life, choose new ways of thinking about themselves so that we can get a different return and we can create something else. Because we really do prove our thoughts true. Whether they're useful or not, we're constantly acting in accordance with them and proving them true to ourselves. All right. So be on the lookout for those first thoughts and choose your second thought. Choose your third thought. You are not your thoughts. You're the one that gets to choose. All right. That's what I have for you today. Remember, I love you. You've got this. Come join us in Grief Essentials. It's not too late. All right. I love you. I'll see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye. If you like what you've been hearing on this podcast and want to create a future you can truly get excited about even after the loss of your spouse, I invite you to join my Mom Goes On coaching program. It's small group coaching just for widowed moms like you, where I'll help you figure out what's holding you back and give you the tools and support you need so you can move forward with confidence. Please don't settle for a new normal that's less than what you deserve. Go to coachingwithkrista.com and click Work With Me for details and next steps. I can't wait to meet you.